A man abandoned by his wife while fighting for his life in a hospital rebuilds everything. And 7 years later, fate forces her to face what she lost. I used to believe that some promises were unbreakable, the kind spoken softly in the dark, with fingers intertwined, hearts racing, and the future feeling safe simply because we were facing it together. My wife used to look at me that way, the way that made you believe tomorrow was guaranteed. She once told me, "No matter what happens, I'm not going anywhere." I believed her. I believed her on the day we found out she was pregnant, when she cried and laughed at the same time. I believed her when we talked about names, about first steps, about the kind of parents we wanted to be. I believed her because love has a way of blinding you to the cracks forming right beneath your feet. But promises sound very different when you're lying in a hospital bed. The smell of antiseptic filled the air. Machines hummed and beeped in a steady rhythm that felt too calm for how terrified I was inside. My body felt weak, heavy, like it didn't fully belong to me anymore. Somewhere in that same building, our newborn baby was fighting for her life. And somewhere between those two realities, everything I thought was solid began to fall apart. I remember staring at the ceiling, replaying her words in my head. Forever, always, together. How did forever turn into this? Just hours earlier, I had still been a husband with a future. A man expecting to hold his wife's hand while they faced the hardest moment of their lives together. Instead, I was alone, surrounded by white walls and quiet footsteps, waiting for someone who never came back. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that you never imagined they could leave when you needed them most? I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe she was overwhelmed. Maybe she needed air. Maybe fear had frozen her in place. I clung to those thoughts because the truth was too painful to consider. The idea that love could simply disappear felt impossible. The nurses spoke kindly, but their eyes held that careful distance reserved for people standing at the edge of something life-changing. Every passing minute stretched longer than the last. My phone stayed silent. No messages. No reassurance. No familiar voice telling me everything would be okay. In that bed, I realized something terrifying. Promises don't protect you when character disappears. The life I thought I was building began to feel like a story someone else had written and then abandoned halfway through. I wasn't just scared for my child. I was scared of what this silence meant. Scared that the woman who swore she'd stand beside me had already chosen to walk away. And yet, even in that moment, with my heart heavy and my body broken, one truth started to rise above the fear. If she didn't come back, I would still have to stand. If love failed me, responsibility could not. Somewhere in this hospital, a tiny life depended on me showing up, no matter how shattered I felt. Sometimes the moment that breaks you is also the moment that reveals who you must become. The day our daughter was born was supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. Instead, it unfolded like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. It started with panic, rushed voices, a doctor speaking too quickly, using words I barely understood but immediately feared. Something was wrong, very wrong. Melissa was being wheeled down a hallway under harsh white lights, her face pale, her grip tight around my hand. I tried to be strong for her, even as my heart pounded so hard it felt like it might break through my chest. Then the doors closed. I was left alone in a cold hallway, staring at a red sign that read, "Authorized personnel only." Time stopped making sense. Seconds felt like hours. Every sound echoed. The squeak of shoes, the distant cry of another baby, the rhythmic ticking of a clock I wanted to smash just to make it stop. I prayed. Not politely, not calmly. I begged. I promised things I didn't know how to give. I asked for mercy I wasn't sure I deserved. Please let them both live. Please. When the doctor finally came out, his expression was careful, measured. He told me our baby had arrived early. Too early. Small. Fragile. She wasn't crying the way babies were supposed to cry. She was struggling to breathe on her own. I didn't even get to see her at first. They took her straight to the NICU, a place I never imagined I'd learn so quickly. A place filled with wires and machines and alarms that never fully stopped. When they finally wheeled me in, I saw her through the glass of an incubator. So tiny, so still. Tubes covered her face, her chest rising and falling with mechanical help. That was my daughter. How could something so small carry so much fear? Joy and terror collided in my chest as I stood there, unable to touch her, afraid that even breathing too loudly might hurt her. I whispered her name, even though we hadn't officially chosen one yet. I told her she wasn't alone, that her father was right there, that she had to fight. Around us, nurses moved with quiet urgency. They spoke in gentle voices, but their eyes never rested. Every beep made my stomach tighten. Every pause felt dangerous. I tried to memorize the shape of her face, terrified that I might lose her before I truly knew her. And then there was the other fear, the one I didn't want to name. Melissa wasn't there. She had recovered enough to rest, they said. But she didn't come, didn't ask to be wheeled in, didn't ask for pictures, didn't ask anything. Standing in that NICU, watching my child fight for every breath, I realized how thin the line was between having everything and losing it all in a single day. Life doesn't warn you before it changes forever. It simply asks whether you'll be strong when it does. I don't remember the exact moment my body gave up. I remember the pressure first, a heavy, crushing weight in my chest, like someone had stacked stones on my heart and kept adding more. My breath shortened. The room tilted. I tried to stand, but my legs refused to listen. Then pain exploded down my left arm. I was still in the hospital, still just a few floors away from my newborn daughter, who was fighting for every breath she took. And suddenly I was fighting too. Voices blurred together. Someone shouted my name. Hands grabbed my shoulders as I slumped forward. I heard the word heart attack, like it was coming from underwater. A gurney appeared out of nowhere, cold and unforgiving as they laid me down. Not now. Please, not now. Bright lights rushed past above me as they wheeled me through the hallways. The same walls that had held my fear for my child were now closing in on me. Doctors spoke urgently. Nurses moved with practiced speed. Someone asked me to rate my pain, but I couldn't form the words. Everything hurt. Everything faded. I remember thinking about my daughter. Had I even held her yet? Would she know my voice? Would she grow up with only stories about the father who loved her but didn't make it? Is it possible to feel your life slipping away while your heart is still beating? I woke up hours later in the cardiac care unit, surrounded by machines that hummed and blinked like silent guardians. My chest felt tight, stitched together by something fragile. A doctor stood beside my bed, calm but serious. He told me I'd had a major heart attack. Stress, exhaustion, and a condition I didn't know I carried had collided at the worst possible moment. Another 10 minutes, he said, and I might not have survived. I stared at the ceiling, numb. Somewhere in this same hospital, my daughter was still in the NICU. 2 lives connected by blood and timing, both hanging in the balance. I wanted to cry, but no tears came. I felt hollowed out, like everything inside me had been scraped raw. The nurse leaned in and spoke softly, as if kindness itself could keep me alive. "Your baby is stable," she said. "She's a fighter." Those words anchored me. If she was fighting, then so was I. I didn't have the luxury of giving up. I didn't have the right to rest in fear. Not when a tiny life depended on me surviving this. Lying there, surrounded by beeping monitors and the sterile scent of survival, I realized how fragile everything truly is. Love, health, time. You don't see their value until they're almost taken from you. Sometimes strength isn't something you choose. It's something you're forced to become when the alternative is losing everything. When I woke up, the first thing I did was look for her. The room was quiet except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. My chest ached, my throat was dry, and my body felt like it had been borrowed and returned broken. I turned my head slowly, expecting to see my wife sitting beside me, maybe asleep in the chair, maybe holding my hand the way partners do when everything falls apart. But the chair was empty. A nurse noticed my movement and gave me a gentle smile. I asked where Melissa was. The smile faded, just slightly, like she'd been expecting the question but didn't know how to answer it. She told me she'd be right back, then left the room. That was when the fear crept in. Minutes later, A doctor came in holding an envelope. He didn't sit down. He didn't meet my eyes at first. He just placed the envelope on the tray beside my bed and said quietly, "Your wife asked me to give you this." My hands shook as I reached for it. Inside were divorce papers, already signed, neatly arranged, cold and final. Beneath them was a folded sheet of paper, her handwriting unmistakable. I unfolded it slowly, my heart pounding harder than it had during the heart attack. She wrote that she couldn't do this anymore, that she had married me expecting more, that I was ordinary, average, not enough. She said our baby was sick and she couldn't handle watching that. She said she had met someone else, someone successful, someone who could give her the life she deserved. She had taken half our savings and left town. I read the letter once, then again. The words didn't change, but something inside me did. My wife had left while I was unconscious, while our daughter was fighting to live, while my life hung by a thread. Who leaves their family at a moment like this? I felt something crack open in my chest, deeper than the surgical pain. This was betrayal without apology, abandonment without hesitation. I wanted to scream, but my body wouldn't let me. I wanted answers, but there was no one left to ask. So this is how it ends, I thought. Not with a goodbye, but with paperwork. The doctor explained that she had checked out earlier that morning. No forwarding address, no request to see the baby, no message beyond what she had written, just absence. I stared at the wall long after they left, the envelope resting beside me like a verdict. In one night, I had nearly lost my life, almost lost my child, and completely lost my marriage. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting, no closure, just silence where love used to be. But in that silence, something else began to form. A quiet, painful clarity. She had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. I could let this destroy me, or I could survive it for the sake of the tiny life depending on me. When people show you who they are in your darkest hour, believe them and choose yourself anyway. I left the hospital with a scar across my chest, a baby in my arms, and a future that felt impossibly heavy. There was no celebration, no balloons, just paperwork, warning pamphlets, and a fragile little girl who depended on me for everything. My body was still weak from the heart attack. Some days, walking across the room felt like climbing a mountain. But every time I looked down at her, I remembered why I had to keep moving. The first nights were the hardest. She cried often, a thin, trembling sound that filled the small apartment we had once shared as a couple. I rocked her in the dark, afraid to sit down in case I couldn't stand back up. Sleep came in pieces, never long enough. Fear sat beside me like a shadow I couldn't shake. How was I supposed to do this alone? There were moments I almost gave in to despair. Moments when the silence felt too loud and the responsibility felt too big. But then she would wrap her tiny fingers around mine, and something inside me would steady. She chose me to stay, I told myself. So I have to be enough. Kindness arrived in quiet ways. A NICU nurse showed me how to hold her without dislodging the tubes, even after her shift had ended. An older neighbor left warm meals at my door without ever asking questions. A woman at the pharmacy helped me apply for assistance programs when she saw the exhaustion in my eyes. None of them owed me anything, yet they gave anyway. The days blurred together into months. Doctor visits, therapy sessions, long nights filled with worry and whispered promises. I learned how to change diapers one-handed, how to cook while holding a baby, how to smile in public even when my heart felt bruised and tired. Some mornings, I woke up terrified of the future, the bills, the what-ifs, the memories of a life that no longer existed. But each night, I laid my daughter down and watched her chest rise and fall, steady and strong, and I knew quitting was not an option. I wasn't strong because I wanted to be. I was strong because she needed me to be. Slowly, my body healed. Slowly, her health improved. And in that slow, painful progress, something unexpected grew between us. A bond forged not in comfort, but in survival. I had lost a wife. I had lost a dream. But I had gained a purpose that anchored me when everything else felt uncertain. Sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is keep going, even when they feel completely alone. Time did not heal everything, but it taught me how to live with the scars. The years after the hospital passed slowly at first, then all at once. My daughter grew stronger with each season, her steps turning from uncertain to confident, her laughter filling spaces that were once heavy with silence. Watching her grow became my daily reminder that survival could turn into something beautiful. I returned to work when my doctor finally allowed it. At the beginning, I was afraid my body would fail me again, afraid I would fall behind. But I worked carefully, patiently, the way you rebuild a damaged wall, one brick at a time. I stayed late when I could, learned new skills, and accepted help without shame. Each small promotion felt like a quiet victory. At home, life found a rhythm. Morning routines, packed lunches, bedtime stories read in soft voices after long days. I learned to braid her hair badly at first, then better. I learned which songs calmed her when she was scared and which questions she asked when she needed reassurance. There were nights when memories tried to return, memories of a life I once imagined, of a woman who walked away. But those memories lost their power over time. Pain slowly gave way to purpose, and bitterness softened into acceptance. What matters more than the past you lost, or the future you choose to build? This life may not be what I planned, but it is real, and it is ours. As my daughter started school, I stood in the crowd of parents, feeling out of place and yet exactly where I belonged. I cheered at small achievements and held her through disappointments. I taught her kindness, resilience, and honesty, not with speeches, but by example. Financial stability returned gradually. The fear of losing everything loosened its grip. I learned that strength wasn't about never falling. It was about standing back up with grace. 7 years passed. By then, the man I saw in the mirror was no longer broken. He was steady, grounded, a father who had built a safe home out of love, effort, and perseverance. The wounds of the past were still there, but they no longer defined me. I didn't rebuild my life to prove anything to the woman who left. I rebuilt it for the child who stayed. Healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens the moment you decide to keep building anyway. I wasn't looking for love when it found us. By then, my world was full. My daughter's laughter filled our home, and our days were shaped by routines that felt safe and earned. I had learned to protect my heart carefully, building walls not out of bitterness, but out of responsibility. My child came first, always. Then I met her. It wasn't dramatic, no sudden spark or grand moment. She was a volunteer at a community event near my daughter's school, helping children with crafts, her voice gentle and patient. I noticed the way she listened, not just with her ears, but with her whole attention. When she smiled at my daughter, it wasn't polite or forced. It was warm, natural. That mattered more than anything. We started with small conversations, short walks, shared coffee after school events. She never rushed, never asked me to explain my past before I was ready. She respected the quiet spaces, the pauses where trust slowly grows. Could love feel safe again? Maybe love doesn't hurt when it's real, I thought. She learned our rhythms before trying to change anything. She asked my daughter's favorite color, remembered her fears, sat on the floor to play instead of standing above her. And one evening, when my daughter reached for her hand without hesitation, something inside me softened. This was different. Love didn't arrive demanding attention or making promises it couldn't keep. It showed up consistently, in packed lunches when I was running late, in bedtime stories read with care, in conversations where honesty mattered more than appearances. Months turned into years. Trust replaced fear. Laughter replaced tension. Our home grew warmer, not louder. She never tried to replace anyone. She simply added herself gently to the life we had already built. One night, as I watched her tuck my daughter into bed, I realized something important. This love wasn't about rescuing me. It wasn't about filling a void. It was about choosing us every day without conditions. The past no longer felt like a wound, felt like a lesson that had led me here. Sometimes love returns quietly, not to impress you, but to prove it will stay. Years had passed since the night she left, since the hospital corridors had echoed with emptiness after her footsteps faded. Life had settled into a careful rhythm. My daughter thriving. Our little home filled with laughter, love, and quiet routines that felt earned. I had thought the past was behind us, buried under years of struggle, healing, and new beginnings. Then the call came. It was an unfamiliar number at first. The voice on the other end was formal, clipped, almost cold. "We're contacting you regarding your ex-wife. She is currently under investigation for criminal activity." My hand froze around the phone. A mixture of shock and disbelief swirled inside me. Was this real, or just another cruel echo from years ago? Could this really be happening now after all this time? The officer explained that her choices, the ones that had left me and our daughter so vulnerable, had finally caught up with her. They spoke of fraud, deception, and consequences that she could no longer evade. Each word was like a weight pressing down on my chest. I felt the old anger stir, the old betrayal. But it was different this time. There was distance now, and I had learned to protect the parts of me that mattered most. I remembered that night in the hospital, the raw fear of holding a newborn alone, wondering if I could survive both physically and emotionally. And here she was, decades later, facing the reality of the choices she had made. My heart didn't race with hope or excitement. It simply observed. The past had arrived, but it no longer controlled me. I am stronger than the pain she caused, I thought, a quiet affirmation to myself. Curiosity mixed with a strange sense of justice. What had driven her to abandon us? Greed? Desperation? Recklessness? The answers didn't matter as much as the proof that actions have consequences, that life eventually balances itself in ways we cannot force. My daughter was safe. I was safe. And that, above all, was what truly mattered. Later, as I hung up the phone, I realized that the story I had lived, the fear, the heartbreak, the loneliness, had become a shield, a guide, and a testament to endurance. She could face her reckoning, but I would continue building our future, untouched by the shadows of what had been. Sometimes the past comes calling not to hurt you again, but to show you how far you've truly come. Life has a way of revealing the truth when you are ready to see it. The fluorescent lights of the hospital hallway were cold, sterile, and unchanged, as if time had stood still in this place. And yet, everything had changed. I walked past the familiar rooms, the maternity wing, the nursery doors, the same corridor where I had once held my daughter's tiny hand, praying that she and I would survive the night. The past whispered in every corner, but today it carried a new weight: strength, love, and resilience. Then I saw her. She froze mid-step, her eyes wide, a mixture of disbelief and regret painted across her face. After all these years, after the long nights, the fights to stay afloat, the laughter and tears that had rebuilt our lives, she was seeing me not as the broken man she had abandoned, but as someone whole, loved, and surrounded by family. My daughter ran to me first, laughter spilling like sunlight across the sterile floor, and I lifted her into my arms. The warmth of this moment was electric, unshakable, and painfully clear. Is this the same place where everything fell apart years ago? Her voice caught in her throat. I didn't need words. I could feel her recognition, the silent acknowledgement of the choices she had made, and the life she had missed watching unfold. My gaze didn't linger with anger. It didn't need to. Instead, I saw clarity, closure, and the undeniable truth that life had moved forward beautifully, without her presence. In that moment, I realized the irony of fate. The same walls that had witnessed heartbreak now held a reunion, not one of reconciliation, but of affirmation. She saw what she had abandoned: a daughter who was happy, a man who had endured, and a life built on courage and love. My daughter's small hand squeezed mine, grounding me in the present, reminding me that our story had been written by determination, not betrayal. I have built something unbreakable despite everything. She took a hesitant step closer, perhaps seeking an apology, perhaps searching for the connection we had once shared. I simply smiled gently, acknowledging the past without letting it define the present. The moment was hers to grapple with, but my life was no longer hers to disrupt. In the eyes of my daughter, I saw the promise of the future. A future that could not be stolen, no matter the regrets that lingered in the past. Sometimes the people who leave us return, not to change us, but to witness the strength they underestimated. True love and resilience will always shine, long after betrayal fades. The evening sun spilled golden light across the living room, and for the first time in years, the quiet felt comforting rather than empty. I sat on the couch, my daughter drawing beside me, her small fingers moving confidently over her sketchpad, laughter spilling like music into the room. The past, pain, betrayal, anger, had its place, but it no longer had a hold on my heart. I had chosen healing over hatred, peace over revenge, and for the first time I felt truly free. Why do we cling to anger when forgiveness can set us free? I thought about her, the woman who had left, the choices she had made, the lessons I had learned through every tear. I am not defined by her absence or her mistakes. My life had been rebuilt with effort, love, and unwavering commitment to my daughter. Every late night, every moment of doubt and fear had led me to this peace. I could see clearly now that vengeance would have chained me to the past, but letting go, truly letting go, had given me wings. The phone had called weeks ago with news of her struggles, but I didn't need to confront her or punish her. Closure didn't come from making her feel the pain she caused. It came from me feeling whole again, from my daughter's laughter, from the quiet confidence of knowing that love had won. Our life was rich with moments that mattered. Bedtime stories, weekend adventures, the simple joy of a shared smile. This is what strength feels like, not anger, but calm and certainty. As I looked out the window at the sun dipping below the horizon, I felt a gentle satisfaction in knowing that boundaries had protected our happiness, and forgiveness had protected our hearts. She could carry her regrets. I carried lessons, love, and the unshakable bond with my daughter. The scars remained, but they were not wounds. They were reminders of endurance, courage, and the life I had chosen to build from the ruins. Closure was not dramatic, and it did not require confrontation. It was quiet. It was steady. It was a choice to honor myself and my daughter, to protect our peace, and to celebrate the life we had fought so hard to create. Sometimes the bravest act is not seeking revenge, but simply choosing to live fully, with love guiding the way. Healing is the greatest victory over the past.